Now, if I don't get elected, it's going to be a bloodbath for the whole. That's going to be the least of it. It's going to be a bloodbath for the country. That'll be the least of it.
It's Ken Harbaugh with Against All Enemies on the Midas Touch Network. You just heard former President Trump on the campaign trail in Ohio say it's going to be a bloodbath if he doesn't win re-election. I don't know how much clearer it could get. Donald Trump poses an existential threat to democracy. The only election results he'll respect are those in which he is declared the winner. That is not democracy. We have been sounding the alarm on this channel from day one, and yet major news organizations are burying their heads in the sand about the dangers we face. Here's how CBS News covered the same event.
Presumptive GOP nominee Donald Trump held his first rally of the week today as he splits time between court and the campaign trail. Former President Donald Trump returned to friendly territory Saturday, a state he won twice.
I'm thrilled to be back with the proud, hardworking patriots of the great state of Ohio. I won this state, and you won this state.
He's not only campaigning for himself in Ohio, but his pick for the U.S. Senate seat ahead of a competitive three-way GOP primary.
I'm not trying to single out CBS. Their coverage was representative of most of the stories about this event. It's as if, in an attempt to appear nonpartisan, major media outlets are ignoring what is right in front of them. And it's not as if Donald Trump's threats are merely hypothetical. We saw what happened on January 6th. He has already tried once to undermine American democracy using violence. The main difference between that attempt and what we're likely to see should he lose again and fail to accept the outcome is that now he and his enablers have a plan. I spent 3 years on a film about violent insurrectionists and the threats they pose to our democracy. That film, Against All Enemies, premieres in the U.S. on March 29th. What I learned is that these anti-democratic forces have only grown in strength since January 6th, and they draw enormous encouragement from the rhetoric of Donald Trump. Should he be reelected, he is almost certain to back up that rhetoric with the kind of lawless actions that will be the death knell for democratic norms, like the pardoning of insurrectionists and the persecution of his political enemies. So when Donald Trump says it's going to be a bloodbath if he doesn't win, don't take that as a warning. Take it as a promise. It's what he wants. One of the things that makes this kind of rhetoric exceptionally dangerous in America is that we are a nation awash in firearms. In many states, Ohio among them, you can now purchase a high-powered semi-automatic rifle with no training and no permit, and open carry is the law of the land. When a former president talks about a bloodbath in front of a cheering crowd, that's an incitement. We know there are people all too willing to act upon such provocations, and given how easy it is to acquire weapons of war, we know exactly where this will lead. Here's the thing. Donald Trump's incitements aren't just the actions of a single depraved individual. They've become a rallying cry for the party he leads. We've covered Marjorie Taylor Greene's calls for executing Nancy Pelosi, Paul Gosar's use of violent imagery to target a prominent Democratic lawmaker. Donald Trump has so normalized talk of political violence that many of us hardly notice it anymore. But when he talks about a bloodbath if he's not reelected, this is who is hearing that.
But I want to ask you something a little bit out of the ordinary, so prepare yourself. At this point, we're living under corporate and medical fascism. This is tyranny. When do we get to use the guns? No, and I'm not, that's not a joke. I'm not saying it like that. I mean, literally, where's the line? How many elections are they going to steal before we kill these people?
So, no, no, hold on.
That question, asked at a conservative conference, was met by cheers. And you can bet that in America today, the kind of people asking those questions are armed to the teeth. It was striking to me that Donald Trump delivered his bloodbath remarks in Dayton, Ohio, where a horrific mass shooting occurred in 2019. Some time ago, I spoke with the mayor of Dayton, Nan Whaley, after that shooting, about her efforts to pressure Republican lawmakers to enact meaningful reforms to address the gun violence epidemic. They did nothing. Even the ones who promised to help gave in to the gun lobby and the extremists in their ranks. That is what we're up against in 2024. It's not enough to beat Donald Trump and re-elect Joe Biden. We need to repudiate Trumpism and the party that has sustained it. Here from the archives is the former mayor of Dayton, Ohio, Nan Whaley. Her insights into the cynicism of the Republican Party are even more resonant today.
You know, after Dayton had a mass shooting that killed 9 and injured 27 more in 2019, the governor came to the vigil the next day. The people of Dayton shouted him down, thousands of them, do something. He couldn't even finish his speech, something you never see anymore in American politics. He called me the next day, said he intended to do something around gun safety. I'm a mayor. I take him at his word. I like to work across party lines. Stood next to him when he unveiled his Strong Ohio bill, and then watched him do absolutely nothing to move it forward, because he's too weak to stand up to the extremists and radicals in his party. And then I watched him go even further against law enforcement, signing bills like permitless concealed carry and the arming of teachers, something law enforcement's even against when we talk about making sure that our communities are safe. And, what I witnessed there is a bunch of elected officials who will privately tell you that they think their party is crazy or they think that they disagree with this. But when it's public or when the rubber meets the road, they stick and sit with the extremists and radicals.
I want to go back to that community meeting after that horrific shooting in Dayton. You said that the governor was shouted down, but the audience wasn't just drowning him out. They were demanding action. Can you talk about that moment and that refrain that stuck in our heads in Ohio, and then the total failure of the governor to do something?
Yes, look, I mean, the killing of 9 innocent people in 32 seconds and 27 more injured in Dayton was shocking to everyone in our community, especially if you knew someone personally that you had lost. And, when we had the vigil the next day and on the same street where we had lost our neighbors hours earlier, I think people really came, thousands of Daytonians came to really hold on to one another and try to make sense of something that's very hard to make sense of. And so when the governor got up to speak, this was a completely organic thing where people just started shouting, do something. And it was this powerful moment because it was very obvious that this didn't have to happen. And I felt the calling from that moment that, look, the people of Dayton are, again, common sense people, and it doesn't make any sense that we should live in fear of going to dinner, going to a grocery store, hanging out with friends, going to schools, going to football games, and have to worry about our kids and our family. And that is a freedom that is being taken away by extremists from the gun makers. So this is an issue of extreme radicals just taking a hold of the governor because he is too concerned about holding on to political power rather than doing what's right. And that is so dangerous in our discourse, that we have elected officials that are more concerned about holding on to their power than making sure to make communities more safe. It shows what's wrong and what is broken in our system.
It's Ken Harbaugh with the Midas Touch Network. The film Against All Enemies, which I co-produced with Ben Meiselas and this network, has won awards around the world for its up-close portrayal of America's insurrectionist movement. It premieres in the U.S. on March 29th on Amazon and Apple TV. Go to againstalllenemiesfilm.com or click the link below. But don't just watch Against All Enemies. Tell your friends about it. It's one more way to hold accountable those who threaten our democracy. Thanks, Midas Mighty. Let's use our power well.